All right, I'm very excited. We are definitely live and live from Houston, Texas, actually. We're both in Houston, myself as well as my guest. Let us know where you're signing in from, what city, what state, what country. We're talking about leadership today. So if you want to know more about leadership from a person who's definitely walking the talk, and you're in the right place. So I'm very excited about today's guest. We have Mr. Omar Reid. He is the Senior Vice President of Human Resources at Harris Health System here in Houston, Texas, an organization of over 10,000 employees. But we're going to talk a lot about his book today. He actually wrote a book. It's a wonderful book. We're going to talk all about it today and about how we can be mad, mad with leadership. I love that. We're going to dive into what exactly that means here in just a moment. But we're going to learn all about mad leadership with Omar Reid. So welcome to the show, Omar.
Hey, Rollis, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me today. I am very excited to be here. I just want to thank you for the service that you provide to the HR community with your show, and I'm super excited. Look forward to our conversation today about mad leadership and leadership in general.
Awesome. Okay, so as folks are coming in with the comments, there's one question I want to kind of start off with, if you will, yeah, sure.
Omar's audio is very, very low.
His audio is low. Okay, so let's give us one more mic check. Go ahead, Omar.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
That seems to be pretty good, actually. And folks who are just signing in, let us know where you're signing in from, what city, what state, what country. We'd love to know where you are in the whole leadership spectrum. Are you a leader? Are you an aspiring leader? Perhaps you want to get some tips on how you can become a better leader.
The same thing.
Same thing?
Same thing.
Okay. All right. 1 second here. Let me double check. There may be some settings here on. Let's see here. I think I can fix. There we go. I think I can fix that here. I think we're good. Testing one. Give me another mic check, Omar.
Mic check. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
I think we're good to go. That should fix it right there, Jonathan. You let me know for sure. So, Omar, let's go into it if we can at the beginning here, off the top. And for those who are just not coming in, we're with Omar Reid. He's the Senior Vice President of HR at Harris Health System here in Houston, Texas, an organization of over 10,000 employees. It's a safety net system here in Houston, which does a great service for our community. And he's also the author of a book called Mad Leadership. We're going to talk about what that mad part means today. It's very interesting. So, Omar, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rollis, good afternoon, and thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here. I thank you for the opportunity to talk about leadership. It's something that I'm extremely passionate about, and as we go into our conversation today, I can't wait to share some of my insight and years of experience in talking about leadership.
And whenever you're in leadership, it's always good to have a good team. That's why I'm so glad I got a good team that helped us with our sound issue here just a moment ago. But I think we're okay, right, Jonathan? We're going to trust that we're okay. I think we are. Okay.
All right.
Oh, actually, no. He gave me a message. He said it. He did it through the chat message, so we're good. Okay. So I want to get into it with your first best tip on leadership, because right now, if there's any time we need it more than ever, is at the moment. So, give us like your top tip on leadership in terms of those who are currently in leadership.
So the first thing I'll say, Rollis, is that leadership is personal and not positional. Being a leader doesn't require a title, and having a title doesn't necessarily make you a leader. So if you want to start out and boil it down to its most fundamental element, I think that, and every person is a leader, but it's personal and not positional. Titles mean nothing in terms of leadership.
That is powerful. Yeah, I'm glad you helped to recalibrate me on that. That sometimes a person will say, well, I'm not a leader, so maybe this isn't relevant to me. Give me some ideas of some things a person can do who's not in a leadership position that do display leadership.
Well, leadership, Rollis, is really about actions and behaviors. And so it's not necessarily something that someone can do. It's really about what you do every single day. And how you comport yourself, how you carry yourself, those things that you are communicating. And believe me, we're communicating all the time, whether we recognize it or not. And so it's really a combination of, your actions and behaviors that drive your leadership characteristic, your leadership competencies. And from a single mother who's leading a family to someone who's leading a multi-million-dollar organization, I think that there are some common things that come together that make successful leaders.
Those are great points. Yeah, absolutely. And we got some comments that have come on just since we started. Someone who we both like very much, and that's Norma. She says Omar is definitely an amazing leader, and I have been blessed to be his executive assistant for 8 years. That says a lot. That says a lot because I've seen some leaders, they may have had 8 assistants in 8 years. But
yeah, well, Rollis, Norma is a special person. She's definitely very special. And she keeps me on track. So she lines up everything for me. And that's important for leaders, to have a team of people around you. I think you just talked about, leaders aren't successful unless the team wants them to be. So it's not, what I do in isolation. It's what the team and I are able to accomplish together that makes you a successful leader. So, I've been blessed to work with Norma for the last 8 years. And I've had some amazing, amazing talent on my team. So that's part of being a leader, and, developing that team and developing that teamwork is so important if you're going to be a successful leader.
Absolutely. Well, this is great stuff. And it's so true. If your team doesn't want you to succeed, you're not going to be very good at leadership. So I love that. Okay. So I have another question for you. And after this question, we're going to get into what the M.A.D part means, because I'm interested in talking about that.
Okay.
What daily activity or time of day do you treasure more than any other?
Wow, what daily activity? I think that would be my daily meditation time. And so I'm an early riser. This morning, I was at the gym at 5 o'clock. I get up at about 4:15 every day to go to the gym. And so my meditation time is from 6 to about 6:15, 6:20. And so that's a time that I treasure every single day.
Wow. That's amazing. So, okay, let me ask you this. Is that just something that's just kind of wired in? You've always been kind of an early riser, or is that something that you kind of had to overcome at some point in your life and create this habit? Tell me about that.
Well, I will say it is a habit that I've built over time. Is certainly, I think if you leave your success to randomness, then you're guaranteed mediocrity. And so I am very deliberate and intentional in the things that I do. And so, I try to plan out as much as I can. I'll just tell you something that I like to tell people. Bill Gates, Barack Obama, me and you have all have something in common. And what we have in common is that we all get 24 hours in a day. And the question becomes, how do you utilize that 24 hours in a day that you're given? And so I've tried to maximize the things that I'm able to accomplish in a day. And so, I probably am not going to be able to tell you anything about the latest episode of whatever show is on TV because I'm just not that into TV. I like sports, but if you ask me something about leadership or what's going on, I'm very in tune to those things. So maximizing the 24 hours that we have in a day is extremely important to me. And so I appreciate, things that start on time. Anything that I'm a part of, Rollis, is going to start on time and end on time. I was president of the fraternity for 4 years. And one thing they knew about our fraternity meetings, that they would start on time and they would end on time. Actually, I ascribe to the Lombardi time method. And if you know Vince Lombardi, you know that he had a saying for the old Green Bay Packers that 5 minutes early was on time was late, and anything else was unacceptable. And so I try to subscribe to that theory in my daily walk and my daily leadership. So we try to maximize the time that we have, because at some point it's going to be over.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? You practice what you preach on that, because I've had interactions where there was if something was supposed to start at a certain time, and you were there early actually.
Yeah,
Even
well,
today, that's part of it. So, yeah, you definitely are walking that. So I appreciate that. Now, I want to get into what is it? How did you come up with this MAD leadership? M.A.D. What does it stand for? Why is that meaningful?
so MAD stands for making a difference, and the book is making a difference. Leadership, show the people the light, and they will find a way. Is sort of the subtitle of the book, and each of us every day are given a gift, and that gift is the gift of a new day, and given that new day, we each have an opportunity to make a difference in that day and change the lives of others. Um, my pastor at the church that I go to says that we are blessed to be a blessing to others. And MAD leadership sort of looks at that way and says, how do we maximize, how do we prioritize, and how do we help make a difference in the lives, especially from a leadership perspective, of those that we are leading or those that we are interacting with. And, I try to practice it every single day. I can tell you this weekend I was mentoring some people, somebody was trying to turn in an assignment. One of my old students from U of H downtown, probably hadn't had that student in probably about 2 years, but he's working on an assignment that he was trying to turn in for a job that he's trying to land. And so I worked with him through the PowerPoint presentation that he was working on, and hopefully he'll get that opportunity to land that job. So I think it's important for all of us to make a difference, and you can make a difference in a multitude of ways. It's not just leading people. You can volunteer. There are all types of things that you can do to make a difference in this world. And right now, I think that we're really in a place where we need people who can make a difference.
That's amazing. So you're actively involved with teaching students. Is that right? Did I catch that right?
Yeah. So I'm what they call a corporate fellow at the University of Houston downtown. And up until this semester, I was an adjunct faculty member at Texas Southern. So it is about giving back to the next generation. It's not just about me, and helping shape their lives and helping shape them in their careers and helping them be successful. So once again, that goes into that time maximization and time management. And so that's a very important part of what I do, is making sure that I'm giving back to those students.
That's powerful. And Leah Ramsey, she's our president of our company. She spent time doing that, simply a similar program where in the evenings she would go in and teach a class with the University of Houston. So I love that. I admire that you're doing that. As busy as you are, that's amazing that you're able to work that in. If you don't mind, give me one example of a particular student where you felt like you did make a difference in their life. Maybe some things about that particular person and how you were able to kind of see their way through to that next step in their career. I'd love to hear about that if you have a story for us.
Yeah, well, I could tell you about the young man I was working with this weekend. I mean, we don't need to go any further than that. Very smart young man, finished his MBA probably, like I said, I think 2 years ago. Has sort of been in the career field that he's in for a very long time. And after getting his MBA, he wants to make a change. He's like, hey, I've gotten this MBA. I want to see what else that I'm able to do with that MBA. And so he and I sort of formed this relationship. I sort of look at myself as an unofficial mentor to him. And certainly I think he looks at me in that light. And I'll just tell you, the presentation that he sent me, I offered him some really, what I would call, it wasn't critical, constructive feedback around it. And he, spent all day yesterday going back and searching up the presentation, and sent it back to me last night at about 9:00. And I can tell you it was 1,000 times better than what he had sent to me to review the first time. So I think, that he is an example of someone, but there's multiple examples. Right now in our HR department at Harris Health System, one of the things that I know is that people who graduate from college have trouble breaking into the HR field because of a lack of experience. And so we created some HR fellowship roles where they didn't have to have any experience. And we brought them in, all new college graduates. And we're not just giving them assignments to file things. We're giving them real assignments. And I tell you, there's some talented kids that are out there. The work that these kids are turning in and doing, because they're able to use concepts from social media. They're able to use concepts from what they're learning right now. And, we just started this program in May, but I can tell you what they're turning in has been exceeded my expectations.
I love that. Okay, let's talk about mentorship and leadership within the organization. So if you don't mind, maybe touch on some points about how you are mentoring or helping that next batch of leadership for the future. Is there some intentionality that you would suggest that organizations have? And if so, what are some things that we should be doing to prepare those next sets of leaders?
So I thank you for asking that question. And I'll just talk about inside an organization. And me personally, I have 3 sets of groups of people that I mentor. I have what I call my everyday leaders. I have what I call my Leadership Now group. And the last group that I really just started, just because I saw the need, is what I call CHO conversations. In the everyday leaders, those are persons who basically don't have anybody reporting to them at this time. But I can tell from their enthusiasm, I can tell from their personalities, from their character, that they're going to be leaders in the organization at some point. And so that group, sits down with me. And, I've been running this program, Rollis, not just at Harris Health. I ran it when I was at the city of Houston. So these are programs that are longstanding, that are very personal to me, and help me make a difference in the life. The Leadership Now group would be people who have people reporting to them right now. We have a little higher level conversation. We talk about things like motivation. We talk about things like encouragement. We talk about, how you have crucial conversations. So those things that are important, we actually have somebody come in and record them doing presentations. So we have a professional speech coach, presenter person come in and, give them some tips on presenting, and then we record them. And then after recording, we play it back and we offer some constructive feedback to those individuals. And then the last group that I really started this year, because I need to start looking for my successor. And success is not success without a successor. It's something that I truly believe. And so I've really started these things called CHRO conversations with some selected leaders inside of my organization to talk about, what the role of the CHRO looks like, and how they, can aspire to that seat. Now, I always start off the conversation with, I'm not ready to leave, so you might have to get a CHRO job someplace else. But certainly want to help start preparing individuals for that role as they aspire to move into those roles.
I love that. I just want to check in with the audience and see what they think of that. Yeah, I think that's a hit, because the intentionality you put behind actually creating that next batch of leaders and showing people that there is career progression. I think they're less likely to leave. In fact, there's another CEO I talked with not too long ago. He says, the 5 people that I have in my C-suite right now, they could all go get a job somewhere else as a CEO. But it says something, they continue to stay with him because I think that they feel like there's something in it for them, that they have something to learn before they take that next leap. So I think that rather than creating a situation where people will leave, I think some of those people will probably want to stay, to have you mentor them that much longer till they do take that next spot. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. And so what I learned a long time ago is that my success is not dictated by what I do in my office. So, I have an office, I have a certain responsibility, but there are 140 people that work in my department. If all 140 people have a good day, then the likelihood of me having a good day is pretty good. As those persons start to have a bad day, the likelihood of me having a bad day starts to increase exponentially. So it is to my advantage to make sure that those persons are in the best position to succeed, because they drive my success. And as they succeed, then I succeed also. So it's a little selfishness in there, but it is also driven to help them be the best they can be. And so my real job is to, mentor them, to inspire them, to motivate them, to give them the courage to go out and make those decisions that will make our organization what it needs to be. And it's just not in organizations. I participate in some nonprofit boards. And so I try to do that same thing on nonprofit boards by taking, leaders that I see who sit on those boards and have potential, and, mentor them and help them one day sit in the seat that I'm sitting in.
I love it. I mean, it's filling your bucket, but it's filling their bucket at the same time, because you're helping
Right.
to give them, much needed training. Okay, so I want you to answer this as well as those in the comments. So those in the comments, listen to this question as well. If you had to pick one particular thing that makes a house a home, what would it be?
You're asking me that question? I'll tell you, it's my wife.
You and my audience. I want the audience to answer the comments, and I want you to answer me now, please.
So the thing that makes the house a home is my wife. So my wife is the person that makes our house a home. She is the rock of the family. She is she's the glue that holds everything together. She is my biggest coach, my biggest cheerleader, my biggest fan. And she can also be my biggest critic. I can tell you, she remembers stuff from when we first got married that I've forgotten, and she like, I told you to do that, 25 years ago. I'd be like, oh, I forgot. So, but she is certainly the person who makes our house a home. She's our interior decorator. So, she's everything that makes the house a home.
Oh, I love that. Okay, and I think a lot of folks agree with you. In fact, let me just double check here. There we go. Let me see what kind of comments we have here. As far as comments, I saw something that just came through. Leah says, "So glad to have you as a guest today. You always have such great insights." So yes, absolutely, I agree with you, Leah. Joanne says complete family. So I think it's for her, it's her whole family, which is wonderful. Okay, so in terms of leadership, where do you think those who are currently in leadership in an organization, what should they be focusing on the most? Because there's always competing priorities, right? There's the organization priorities of moving forward, perhaps the bottom line, revenue, that sort of thing. There's a competing priority sometimes of mentoring people, make some long-term investments in them that may not necessarily translate into immediate revenue. What are some things you would suggest in terms of leaders? How should they kind of either prioritize or compartmentalize what direction they go in terms of leadership?
So that's a softball question for me, Rollis, because my answer is always focus on the people. Because the people are what are going to drive your success. As much as you want to focus on revenue, that's driven by people. As much as you want to focus on infrastructure, is driven by people. Technology, all of us driven by people. So it all but comes back to me to a fanatical focus on people, because people, even if you give them broken processes. So, I worked at UPS for over 26 years. Most of my time at UPS was spent in operations. And what I saw by focusing on people was that people would take broken processes. I've seen people do incredibly things that you would not even think could be done. I remember one time the power went out in the building, and, obviously, there's miles and miles of belts and conveyors and all types of things. And, the people made up their mind that, we were going to overcome the obstacles. And, they overcame those obstacles, and they just got it done without power. So I think if you focus on people, people are committed to the cause, to what you're trying to accomplish, I think you can never go wrong. I know some people will say, well, let's focus on compliance. Let's focus on, regulatory. Let's focus on, strategy. But all of those things, I believe, tie back to a focus on the people, because people are the product. People drive everything. I think there's a book called People Are the Product, but I think people drive the results that you get in the organization.
That's very interesting. I like what you also said about even if you have broken processes, a lot of times if you got the right people, if you focus on them, they can help you fix your processes. Is there any time you can think in your career where that happened that you could point to?
Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. So I'll start with my time at the city of Houston. So I left private industry in 2010 and moved over to lead HR for the city of Houston. When I got to the city of Houston, through no fault of their own, one of the first things that I discovered was typewriters. And so if you remember 2010, there was a Google, there was a Facebook, there was, all of these things. And at the city of Houston, we still had typewriters. Okay. And we were using typewriters to do all of our personnel actions. There was a form called 201. On that 201, it was a 5-part form. In between each part was carbon paper. Wow. And the first time I came into the office, there was a stack of these 201s that was, 4 or 5 inches high. And I said, what is that? And they said, those are the personnel actions for all city employees. And it was just it was a horrible process. I had to sign and push hard. They said, make sure you push hard so that your signature can go through all 5 pieces of carbon paper. And they would separate them and they would send them wherever they needed to go. One would go to payroll so that the person would be paid correctly. One would go someplace else. One would go to the employee's file. And so it was just a horrible process that, we were able to overcome because we ended up putting the right people in place to overcome that. So yes, there's been times in my career where I've actually seen, people overcome broken processes. In that process, we streamlined it. It's all done. It's all automated. It's done through technology now. But it was certainly a bad process in 2010 to still be using typewriters to do personnel actions.
Yeah, but Omar, I'll say this, that was cutting edge back in 1985 or so when I was in high school.
Right. And to be totally honest with you, one of my biggest concerns was, what was the typewriter repair guy going to do once we moved away from the use of typewriters? So I'm not sure where he's employed at right now, but we kept him in business through 2011. But after that, I'm not sure what he did. So IBM Selectric, I know you remember those, and some of your other kids probably remember those things. The ball that went around, it was like, that's what we were using. And it wasn't just my department, it was every department at the city was using typewriters. So I was happy to help transform that process. If you talk about my leadership style, is sort of what I call transformational and servant at the same time. So how do we transform processes? How do we make sure that we are optimizing processes? And then how do we make sure that we're serving those that we are called to serve?
No, I love it. So when it comes to a big project, and we're talking about leadership here, what are some ways that you organize your team for a big project? Is there some intentionality behind certain steps that you take? Is there a process, or do you just kind of look at each project individually?
Well, I think you have to. So I heard a long time ago, take your best people and put them on your best opportunities. A lot of people like to put people on things that are failing, and that's important too. But if you think about the opportunities that you have as a leader and how you align talent with those opportunities, I can tell you my team probably gets tired of me because I'm always looking at ways to realign the talent in the organization. There's nothing that I fear more than complacency. So I fear complacency more than I fear failure. And so I refuse to be complacent. And so I'm always looking for ways to do things differently. And is there intentionality in the ways we look at doing things? Absolutely. We look at what the opportunity is ahead of us and what talent we have and that we can align with it. And then we are assigning talent in that way.
Oh, I love that. And, we got some other comments have come in, by the way. Gwen answered my question earlier about what makes house a home. For her, she used the word love, which is nice. I'm sure you agree with that one.
Absolutely.
And Derek Harris, he says, Omar is an awesome leader and a great friend. So that's from Derek Harris. How nice.
All right. Hey, Derek, how are you, sir?
And then also I'm noticing that we got a like from a friend of mine, Quint Studer. He's enjoying.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Well,
I don't know if he's still on.
We use the Studer method I'm very familiar with the Studer method. So absolutely. That's an important characteristic to talk about the Studer method for sure. So glad he's out there watching.
Okay, well, you know what? We will talk about that. But before we talk about that, I do have a question I want to ask. One of my fun questions here. Okay, would you rather? I'm gonna do. Would you? Okay, do you want to do a would you rather or open-ended question? What would you prefer?
Would you rather?
Okay.
For 50. Would you rather for 50?
Okay, here we go. How about would you rather make? Let's see. Would you rather catch a fish with a spear or a deer with a boomerang?
Fish with a spear. Fish with a spear. I would be scared to try to do anything with a deer. And a fish could get out of the way. The deer is probably too big, so I'm afraid of something like that. If I miss the fish with the spear, then I'm okay. But a big old deer coming at me, I'm not sure trying to hit him with a boomerang is a good idea.
I think I'm with you on that. You have me convinced. Guys in the comments, what do you guys think? What would you go with? Catching a fish with a spear or a deer with a boomerang? I'm with you, Omar. I think I'm going to go with the fish, especially if it's a small enough fish. I'm not going to go with that deer because, if I miss that deer, he might get upset with me.
Well, here's a true story. Anybody listening to this, not everybody listening to this, I'm scared of bugs. So I'm not a bug fan at all. So I'm not going to be doing anything out in nature with deer or anything else. So bugs bother me a lot.
So that must mean you probably don't do much hiking then.
None.
I understand. I understand. Okay.
No camping. I think I've been camping once in my life. So
we're going to talk about. I know she mentioned that you guys did the Studer method. I would like to hear about kind of what that meant for you, how that's been meaningful in your practice. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. So when I got to Harris Health System, they were talking about how we were going to evaluate talent and how we're going to utilize resources, what resources we're going to utilize to really evaluate talent and performance. And so one of the things that, came to light was, some people had experience with the Studer method. It wasn't really something that I had any formal experience with until I got to healthcare. But I found it to be a very interesting methodology to utilize. And so, we have some experience with that. And another method that we're also looking at, Rollis, is another guest that you had on here was Lou Adler and that performance-based hiring. So, you have some tremendous guests on this show who have all types of knowledge. And, I called my talent acquisition team immediately after listening to Lou and saying, hey, how can we incorporate this into what we're doing and get away from being so scripted when you start talking about job descriptions and, because as he said, it's really a people description or people posting that you're trying to, and how do we look at the overall person and the talent that they bring to utilize their job. I believe in non-traditional hires. Some of my better hires have been non-traditional people. I'm a non-traditional person. I don't think I told you. I had no healthcare when I went to healthcare. I had no government when I went to government. And so I've been able to break into both of those fields really without the traditional background of either government or healthcare. And to a certain extent have been, what I would call somewhat successful and others might call more successful.
I love you mentioned this. I really do. Let me pick up on the Lou part. So, by the way, Lou's having a thing, and I'm going to send you a message on this. He's having a thing tomorrow where he's got this David Goldstein. He's one of the top labor attorneys that he's doing a session with tomorrow, talking about can this work from the OFCCP or whatever, one of those abbreviations. Can it work within that framework? I'm very interested in learning more about this. So anyway, I'll have to let you know about that offline. But one of the things that I appreciated about him, that it sounds like you do as well, is that we've kind of gotten stuck in almost like this complacency. You talked about this earlier, a complacency of just doing job descriptions the same way that we have been for the past 30, 40, 50 years. And so how do we make that better? Because I think 40, 50 years ago when they first started doing that, that was during a time period when people were not able to access these jobs online and be able to self-qualify themselves. We're expecting these people to see these jobs on a job posting somewhere and to be able to accurately determine if they qualify for that, when really most job descriptions just describe what the person is like more so than what is actually involved in the job. So I love that you brought that up, because it challenges us to look at things a little bit differently. So I love that you're that type of leader. You're always looking for what's next. Is that something that comes naturally, or did you have to work on that?
I think it comes sort of naturally. I'm always looking for connections. So I'm always, looking at, cross applicability. I was talking to talk about talent acquisition team, and we were talking about internal mobility. And so, I was thinking about, not just internal mobility from a healthcare perspective, but, what is transportation doing? What is oil and gas doing? What is big tech doing in terms of internal mobility, and how are they addressing it? And so, I'm always I think I've been given a gift, blessed, if you can't say anything else, to be able to look at those things and say, how does that work? I'm always reading too, Rollis. So reading is an important part of what I do. I told you, maximizing that time. I try to read 2 books a month. And so, that takes some intentionality. But, I just finished a book on cybersecurity, and, it was a great book, talked about, and I like investigative journalism because they really dig into what happened and how it happened. And so that book really gave me some insight into, what's going on in the cybersecurity world and how black hats and white hats and hackers and everything else work. And so I'm very in tune to trying to expand. And that's really why I wrote the book, is because I've been given a gift, a lot of knowledge of a lot of different things. And how do I give that gift? It's sort of like your Growth Monday here that you have today. All of us can operate out of a abundance or scarcity mentality. Scarcity says, I have what I have. I need to hold on to what I have. Abundance says, I have what I have, and if I give it away, I'll get more. And so, or I can help more and help others with more. And so really trying to operate out of that abundance mentality to utilize the book and push the book out there to give the knowledge that I gained over the years on, motivation or presence or, the other things that are included in the book, and really try to utilize those things and help others grow.
Love it. So what should I expect? Let's say I were to start reading this book today, which I probably will today. What should I expect when I'm reading it? Is this like a how-to? Is it step-by-step? Is it more concepts? Give me an idea of what's kind of the framework of how you put this together. What kind of vision you have that you're expecting for the reader to experience.
So it's really a how-to book. It's how to help you become a M.A.D leader. It talks about how to give a good presentation. Because leadership is about selling ideas. I tell
Absolutely.
people all the time, one of my jobs is I'm a sales guy. It ain't my formal title, but I'm always selling ideas to the organization. And, sometimes I get a Volkswagen, sometimes I get a a Cadillac to sell, but it's always about selling, and you've got to be able to present that. But it's also about and there are practical stories in there to talk about how other leaders have done it. I'll just give you a quick quote out of the book. Denzel Washington says, "Don't aspire to make a living, aspire to make a difference." And each of us, if we're taking those concepts that are in the book, whether it be how to give a good presentation, or whether it be how to change the culture in the organization, there are tips, there are questions, there are guides in there that will allow you to sort of follow a roadmap if you're in a leadership position to really make a difference inside of your organizations. Questions that you can ask to say, where are we at on this continuum? Because I believe everything is on a continuum. You could be at the early stages, you could be at the middle, or you might be in the final stages. But, we're operating on a continuum at all times.
I love it. So Gwen Chambers says bugs galore in Texas. So she's with you. She lives in the Houston area as well. Christopher Robinson, he says, regarding leadership and people, a colleague of mine, and hello, Chris, glad you're able, Christopher, glad you're able to sign in. He says, a colleague of mine lives by the adage, culture, that's people in the workplace, eats strategy for breakfast. What does that adage mean to you, Omar, in terms of leading people? That's a good question.
Well, no matter what the strategy that you have in place, if you don't have the right culture, you'll never be successful at it. So, I think it goes back to actions and behaviors, and I agree with that. I think that Peter Drucker was the first one who said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And the culture is sort of like, the wind, you don't always see it, but it is always there. I think that the culture is how the norms, how we operate as a organization. And if you don't address the culture, no matter what strategy you put in place, it's not going to be successful. And I can tell you, a lot of times, organizations espouse a certain culture or a certain strategy, but their culture does not support it. There's much research done on, we want to accomplish X, but every single day we are doing Y. And it can be something as simple as, we're trying to create a culture of trust and respect, but we require employees to bring us paperwork for a death in the family. Well, that's not going to inspire too much trust and respect if you're asking employees to bring you a obituary, and I don't know, organizations still do that, but that's just one example that comes to mind if you're trying to create the right climate, create the right culture inside of the organization. So I think, what the leaders do every single day, that personal trust that they build with employees, as opposed to organizational trust, we trust the people in charge are doing the right things, is a big difference. There's leverages on both of those things that you have to make sure that the behaviors and the actions line up to.
Love that. Okay, now I want to follow up with you on another question. With whenever you come into an organization and you see some definite needs in terms of improvements and changes in leadership, I want to talk about how we can start to transform existing leadership to be able to do some of those things you talked about. But before we do that, I have a question for you. Are you ready?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What sport or activity did you try as a kid and fail at?
Oh my goodness. Swimming. So I failed at that. And I probably failed at golf. I failed at tennis. What other sports have I failed at? Football. I actually played football. I grew up in Ohio. Just a quick story. I grew up in Ohio. I played football, but I didn't like the cold. And so in November, when we were outside playing football, that was not enjoyable for me. So I became much better at basketball because it was inside of a gym. And so I failed at all types of things in my career. As a matter of fact, the people who know me know that I say this a lot. I failed at more things in my life than I've been successful at. But the difference between that is the ability to overcome those things that you failed at. Now, I'm going to tell you a true story before I get to your other question.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to hear it.
And I know my mother is listening to this. I'm not sure if she's ever heard this before, but I'm actually sitting here today talking to you as a person who flunked out of college. So, yes, I may have an MBA right now, but I'm also a person who had a lot of fun early in my college career, which led to something called academic probation, which led to something that you can't go to school here anymore. So I had to really buckle down and refocus. But as you can see in my name there is an MBA that is truly associated with my with me that did not that I actually had to work and earn. So I failed at so many things in my life, Rollis. If we could probably spend a whole show talking about stuff that I failed at.
But do you feel that, and I thank you for sharing that with me, do you feel that failure leads to success?
Absolutely. It absolutely. I mean, those life experiences that you have when you fail at something, that's the type of person, when you talk about the type of person that I want on the team, it's a person who has experienced that type of failure and still got up to achieve more and keep pushing themselves. So absolutely, I believe that failure has propelled me more to be the person that I am today, just because I know what failure looks like. But the other thing is I have the courage because I have failed before. Some people have never failed before, don't have the courage to even try something. At the city of Houston, we saved $42 million, and it was because I wasn't afraid to fail when we started changing and tinkering around with our health benefits program. And we cost avoided over $275 million because I realized that, readjusting our plan, our program was what we needed to do, but I wasn't afraid to fail. And, that's also in the book. It talks about having a vision, and, leaders always have a vision. And that vision started off with the simple premise of, healthy people cost less than sick people. And how do you keep people healthy? And so I had a phenomenal team that really did some outstanding things to help us keep people healthy. But we went from $0 in the bank to $42 million in the bank and cost avoided $275 million in right over 4 years.
That is amazing. That is amazing. In fact, I'm sure the audience appreciates that too. And yep, I was right. So that's awesome. Let me ask you this though. There are a lot of leaders that want to go for the safe choice and are afraid to fail because they don't want to mess it up for themselves or the person behind them, especially if they're maybe they were a stretch call to get in that position. Mm-hmm. So talk to me about how does a person navigate through, I want to be safe enough to be able to keep my position, but at the same time, I want to take chances that I know can propel us to success. How do you balance those two sometimes competing priorities?
Yeah, I think leadership is having courage, and being in those positions require you to sometimes do, things that are outside of the norm. And, if you lose your job, it probably wasn't a job for you. If you just play it safe through life, I believe that we should make the dash count. All of us have a beginning date and an end date. And I know that I'm not at Harris Health for the rest of my life, and somebody will come after me. How do I set them up for success? If I just continue to play it safe, am I really setting them up for success? Or am I really setting them up for success if I do some of those stretch things that you talked about? And so I think leaders are required to do some of those stretch things. I just believe they have to if they're going to be good leaders. And, if you work in an organization that does not tolerate failure, then that's one thing. You have to understand how to navigate those waters. But I think having been in the organizations that I've been in, failure was tolerated to a certain extent. And I think, learning from those failures is certainly important. As I said, I could tell you stories here where I was given an assignment one time by the mayor of the city of Houston to help hire the next fire chief. And there were some certain people that should have been on the panel, and I picked one of the mayor's rivals to be on the panel. This was 3 months into my job there at the city, and all I could think about was, well, I'm probably going to get fired when people will show you grace, people will show you favor, people will show you mercy. There's a saying, forgiveness is letting go of the hope for a better past. I forgive people. So, the past is the past, and you have to move forward. And certainly failure is a part of any leader's journey, is what I'll say.
Oh, very good. So I got a couple of the comments that came in since we've been talking here. One of them was by Ian Reynolds. He says, there's more that we didn't have than what we do. Great job, Omar.
Thank you.
Awesome. And then I had one more. I'm trying to hit my refresh button so I can see that. It's interesting that you mentioned this part about not playing it safe to the point that you're okay with the fact that you could even lose your job. That is really powerful. That shows you really have conviction in what you're trying to do. Gwen says our organizations thrive with TLC, talent, leadership, and culture. We need more leaders who embrace these essentials. Preach, Omar. So Gwen Chambers, she really loved what you were saying there. So let's talk about what I was mentioning earlier. It was about when you need to kind of change the leadership. I say not necessarily change the person in terms of moving them out, but I'm talking about helping to help them to progress so that they can progress the organization further.
Yeah. So I think that comes from a connection. Some people you will be able to connect with. And influence them. I mean, leadership is about influence. I think John Maxwell says that. And you have to be able to connect with them to give them the vision of why they need to change. Most people like the status quo. The status quo is actually a destination. You don't do anything. And so I think, connecting with them, helping them see why you're offering them a better future is certainly important and imperative. And, some people come at different speeds. Some people pick it up immediately. There are others who will take a very long time. And, my job as the leader is to motivate those persons, inspire them, and show them what better looks like. A lot of people don't want to change because they've never seen different. And they don't, it's exposure. So how do you expose them to different? And so I've, in both Harris Health System and at the City of Houston, one of my jobs is to expose my team, to different. I saw you had last week, you had Shabu and Carol and, others on and Lori on last week. And so guess what? I talk to them on a bi-weekly basis. And so we're always sharing ideas. And so it's important to network, to make your team network with others, to help them. Get rid of the myopic view of the world that they might have where, everything, they got these blinders on and, everything inside these four walls is what we do. And we don't know what the people outside do. And so it's important to be able to look at those things in a different way. And that comes with exposure. So how do you change those leaders when you come into an organization? You expose them to better and you expose them to different. And then you reward and recognize when things go well, and you don't sanction and punishment when something does not go well. So I think that's an important thing that you need to be able to do as a leader.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. And you know what else? I don't know if you know this, but there's another high-level HR person, VP of HR, that told me that you actually volunteered to come out to their facility and talk to their HR team and gave us some great leadership lessons there. So I know that you go the extra mile when it comes to not only just focus on your own team internally, but also doing it externally. That way, I imagine it's that much easier for you to ask someone else to come from another organization to talk to your people. Is that a good, fair assessment?
No, absolutely. No, I mean, I'm always looking for opportunities to go out and help others. And so, I have a passion about HR for some level of expertise. I don't mind going out and sharing what we are doing inside of Harris Health, because others will share with me. We don't have all the best ideas. Shabu has great ideas. Lori has great ideas. Carol has great ideas. Methodists, they started, you got to have a vaccination to work here. So you got to have a COVID shot to work here. So that's an important lessons that be learned from what they did when they implemented that at Methodist. And so I'm more than willing to share. I believe the more we share, the more we give. It's better to give than to receive. And so I'm certainly willing to give everything that we have away.
And also thank you for, Gary Mara. She's been one of the ones who helped to volunteer in the HR space with the Houston Healthcare HR Association. He's been instrumental in helping us. And if they don't have support of great leaders like yourself and Keith and those other folks, he wouldn't be able to do that. So I want to thank you for again, practicing what you preach to help those other organizations in the community as well.
Well, Gary's an absolute superstar on my team. I think he's been promoted 4 times since I've been there in 5 years or 6 years, however long I've been there. But he's an absolute superstar, and I'm lucky to have people like him on my team. They make my job easy. When you have great people on the team, some people don't want great people on the team. I want all great people on my team. As a matter of fact, if I can have 5 LeBron James on my team, that's what I want, because it makes my job much easier. All I have to do is show up, and they'll run the practices. They'll make sure that the right plays are called. And so I'm always looking for talent to add to my team. There's no question about it. The more talent you have on the team, the better the team results are going to be.
Love it. Okay, so
I guess I should say Giannis Antetokounmpo now instead of LeBron James, looking at where we are in the playoffs. So that guy's on.
That's true. So, yeah. Or maybe Chris Paul, possibly. I don't know.
Yes, absolutely. Which way those guys are, they're rocking it out right now.
Well, listen. So for those who would like to continue to extend the dialogue or perhaps read your book, give us some ways. First of all, what's the best way to connect with you, Omar?
Hit me up on LinkedIn. If you go to LinkedIn and you message me on LinkedIn, I certainly will connect with you on LinkedIn. We're happy to share some of these comments. If you're interested in the book, you can go to Amazon and buy it. It is out there. Put my name in and it'll come up. And certainly, I look forward to connecting with your audience here. I think that this is what we need to do, is to help make other people M.A.D leaders. And, if you show people the light, they will find a way. That's an African proverb. And it resonated with me when I heard it. Our job is to be a light. And if we are that light, others will find their way to the light. So
I love that. In fact, here's what I'm going to do. The very first person to put in the comments, I want Omar's book. If you put I want Omar's book, we will send you a free copy of the book. Just be sure and DM us your address, and we'll make sure you get a copy of the book. So the first one to put in I want Omar's book.
Since you're giving one away, I'm adding 4 to it, so we're going to give away 5.
Oh, wow, 5. Okay, so the first 5 people to say that my 1 plus your 5, that's actually 6. So
okay, 6. I'm sorry, my math is bad.
No, actually, mine's bad. So it's the 6 people who do that. I want Omar's book. We'll make sure and get you a copy of the book. You can DM myself or Omar, and we'll make sure you get a copy of that book, okay? Definitely let us know what resonated with you from today's session. It was a great power pack session. Omar, I got tons of clips off of this. I mean, we're going to have tons of clips. Let's see. Gwen's already saying, I want the book. And we're seeing some other folks come in already. So, yeah, we got a link to the book. Those of you who didn't get in as one of those first few, feel free and go to the Amazon link to pick up a copy of his book. Be well worth your time. Thanks, Omar, for coming on the show. It was a great show today. Really appreciate you for all that you're doing for the healthcare space, but more importantly, the leadership space right now, which is what we need, which can help all of us through whoever's watching this. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Rollis, for having me today. I appreciate you and all that you do to push the HR field and forward. So thank you for all that you're doing also.
I appreciate that. And like you, I have a great team that helps me along the way. So I'm incredibly thankful for that. Jonathan, if you could let us know when it's good for us to do the end of the stream. But let's go ahead and say bye to everyone, Omar. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Okay, don't jump off right yet. Just yet, Omar. 1 second here.
Yeah.
And he'll let me know when it's okay to end the stream.
Okay.
Oh, Gary says, great job, Omar. He was watching there.
All right, you're good to go, Rollis.
Okay, here we go.